Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 3 stories for you from the Tales from Tech Support subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. If you enjoy true crime stories, make sure to check out our new podcast, Karma Crime, which now has 6 episodes available on every major podcasting platform. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's get our nerd on. This story comes to us from Law Techie. I only wanted to explain why you're wrong, not start an incident response. Occasionally, I take on a cybersecurity consulting job that changes during the engagement. This is one of those stories. I'm finishing up reviewing and modifying an evaluation report for a client. The consultant who wrote the report is Janie, new to consulting but possessing a solid technical background from a few years securing colleges and universities. I happen to be on the road this week, so I'm doing this in a mid-grade hotel in a city I'd never visit unless paid. It's the afternoon, I've skipped lunch, so I'm writing suggestions to Janie while working out time and food quality trade-offs via Google Maps. I find a well-rated, local, non-chain place that's around 20 minutes away and looks wonderful. I hit send on my email to Janie, and I'm about to shut my laptop, grab a book, and head off to eat, but I simultaneously get a text and a Teams message from my boss's boss. The Teams message just reads, "Incoming," and is a link to a call starting in a few minutes. I quickly make the room and my upper body presentable. The call starts and I'm the only person from my firm facing a small team of venture capital types. They smile like sharks, have no time for jokes, and wear fleece vests with logos. There's one other person, a younger man, wearing a suit and tie. He's not smiling at all. A brief round of introductions. Everybody but the suit and I are vice presidents. Suit's a senior associate at a law firm that wouldn't recruit at my law school. One of the shinier VCs explains why we're all here. As you all know, our fund is considering investing in Shiny Happy. We need to know what cybersecurity and privacy issues may impact that investment. Senior associate says the same thing, but manages to take 5 minutes with a few disclaimers. While he's talking, I'm looking up Shiny Happy. Shiny Happy is a fashion brand that fetishizes a depression era, simple living, back to the farm aesthetic, for people who never do physical labor. They seem to be a few social media accounts that look like a catalog of beautiful people looking wistful next to old farm equipment, a web store, and a call center. Fine, I can think of what I'd be curious about before I invested. I figure I could get them the info they need with 2 weeks' effort. We'd be happy to do an in-depth evaluation of their infrastructure, data handling, and regulatory compliance. I have some availability coming up. When would we be able to start? We'd need the work to be completed by Friday of this week. Fine, I'll get you a proposal and an initial interview and document request in a few hours. Sounds great, approved. The call ends abruptly. I send a message to Janie to see how much time she has this week to help me. She's got some time and lets me know that Joel, a fellow consultant, has been looking for hours before the end of the month. We work out a quick split of the work. Janie needs more time working with clients, so she's on point for status updates, scheduling, and deliverables. Joel and I start with whatever we can find in the due diligence dump, as well as the open internet. We learn a few things from our research and reading. Shiny Happy's web store is an old version of WordPress. That's a finding. The VC that just hired us has invested in one other lifestyle company, which I'll call Office Park Commando, which sells expensive hunting, fishing, and tactical gear to men who use alpha male unironically. Oddly enough, the social media accounts show attractive male models with pickup trucks, but the stairs aren't wistful, and the trucks are blacked out patrol buggies rather than rust, faded, robin's egg blue, and chrome. Shiny Happy employs about 20 people, none of which have technical job titles. Shiny Happy does pay a local ad agency a monthly fee to maintain and host the website. Shiny Happy isn't using a third party to handle credit cards. They're at least passing through their web store. We have more questions, which is a good sign for the engagement. Talking to people or seeing documents that might answer those questions is not as simple. I escalate this a few times because time is of the essence. The VC firm and Shiny Happy's management don't want outsiders talking to the rank and file, lest they guess the company's being sold. They will let me talk to the people who maintain the web store. I hate myself, but I schedule the call with Dave, Shiny Happy's creative director. Janie, Joel, and I will attend, as will Senior Associate, the lawyer representing the VC. Cause nothing makes a technical interview more awkward than the presence of counsel. Dave joins the call. I start with my chipper therapist voice that we're just here to gather information and not to point blame. I'd like to start with the web store. Who maintains that? That'd be Mountain Advertising. They do all our IT stuff. Any documentation on how they built the system? Like I said, they handle all that. Any chance I could ask them a few questions? Senior Associate pipes in. We'd rather not involve them. Shiny Happy is in a small town. Mountain Advertising might let some shiny sales or warehouse people know about the sale. Dave, can I give you some questions to ask Mountain? Tell them you're shopping for insurance and it's for the underwriters. Well, I guess so. Give me your questions and I'll talk to them. Anything else? Yeah, I get that Mountain dealt with the technical stuff. Can you tell me about how you handle credit cards? We store credit cards in our customer relationship platform. I see. Might you have filled out a form this year? I apologize for the acronym hell, but would PCI DSS SAQ have any meaning for you? It's a credit card processing thing. No, I've never heard of that requirement. Senior Associate pipes in again. Let's not discuss regulatory requirements here. There are technical details in that document that would answer my questions, so we don't need to tip anyone off. I'm developing some kind of professional dislike for Senior Associate. I quickly write up a set of questions for Dave to relay, then have a conversation with Joel and Janie, with drinks over Zoom. We're all commiserating about the consultant life when we get a really dumb email from Senior Associate. He's deeply concerned that all we're asking about are questions about their data handling and infrastructure. He believes that we should be doing dark web searches for breaches and credit cards. Janie and Joel roll their eyes audibly on the call. It turns out that two of us have logins on Carter Markets, where stolen credit cards are bought and sold for lurking, so we have opinions. We outline a brief summary about how card numbers are organized for sale and why they might not even know where they were obtained. Janie and Joel decide that proving another lawyer of something falls to me, so I put my good booze away. I walk out of the hotel to a convenience store for junk food and cheap bourbon. This memo will be written on Spite and Quality House. I'm working out how to order my argument on the walk back. I spend 2 hours or so pacing, writing, and drinking cheap booze from a plastic cup that was wrapped in a plastic bag. I've come up with this. Identifying the source of the cards from the cards themselves is like trying to ungrind beef. Visa could find the common merchant from a bunch of breached cards. Carter Markets and Carters prefer to use bulletproof hosts in friendly jurisdictions to onion sites. Even then, the Carters aren't chatting on open forums on the dark web about their current plans. They're on something that requires authentication. Even then, we should assume that every web store is getting poked at constantly. If I live in a place where it rains all the time, I'm more concerned with the condition of the roof than the weather report when I'm buying a house. At this point, I feel like one of those work avoiders who spends more time explaining why it's not their fault than actually doing something productive. So I think I've read that threat actors will use Pastebin to share useful stuff like scripts, outputs, and notes. Before I send this screed, I should at least do a cursory search on Pastebin. I get a handful of hits on the name. The first 4 are just lists of domains in fashion. The 5th is different. It's a list of domains, snippets of code, and a script that searched for specific versions of WordPress. I look for other text files for the user and find a manifesto about how carding is just payback for the West meddling in Eastern European affairs and the humiliation of the 90s after the fall of the Soviet Union. The files have all been created in the last few months. Wonderful. I don't know if Shiny Happy's been breached, but at least someone's trying. I delete the bitchy email and text Janie and Joel. I think the scope of work just expanded. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Irish Chappie O'Toole. It says, as someone working in the payments industry, nothing sends a shiver down my spine like hearing that someone is processing card data themselves and doesn't even know what PCI DSS is. Alright, so I consider myself a little bit techie, but I don't know what PCI DSS is. So I looked it up, and it appears that it defines the security requirements to protect environments where payment account data is stored, processed, or transmitted. It was developed to encourage and enhance payment card account data security and facilitate the broad adoption of consistent data security measures globally. I guess we learn something new every day. One thing I can tell you though is that senior associate, I wouldn't trust them any farther than I could throw them. I mean, they said, let's not discuss regulatory requirements here. Okay, what are you hiding? It does sound like this one's going to get an update soon, so I'll be keeping my eyes out for that one. And this is law techie, so we can only hope that Ian gets brought into the situation somehow. If you know, you know. This story comes to us from Shiba Sensei 25. Fix my phone. No, you can't touch it. You guys seem to like these stories, so here's one about an infamous regular of ours. This story takes place over year 1 and 2 of my time working at the phone company, so my memory is a bit wonky. So the customer of this story was a repeat customer in my first year, and at this time I was still relatively new when it came to Samsung and Android operating systems in general. Having grown up with iPhone, I was still pretty new when it came to Android systems. 3 years later, and I can say I'm more confident with them, and I think they can be great for tech-savvy people. The customer in this story wasn't one of those types of people. Enter PB, named after a certain 2010s meme. With his appearance, I couldn't tell if he was in his late 30s or late 40s, but he was definitely older. My first interaction with PB went a little something like this. Hello, welcome, how can I assist you today? My banking app isn't working, and I need you to fix it. Newbie me, wanting to be a people pleaser at my new job, decided to help him. Opening his phone, I looked and saw that he was logged out of the app. Okay, sir, you just logged out of the app. You just need to put in your information. Okay, what's my information? I stared at him confused. Your login for the app? Yeah, what is it? How would I know, sir? It's your information. Well, don't you save all the information on phones? No, that's pretty illegal. If you don't know what your app's login info is, then you're going to want to call the bank the app is through and they can help you. Can you call them for me since this is a phone issue? No, sir, we have nothing to do with the app or the bank, and that's sensitive information. Not the exact conversation, but pretty similar to what it was. After I refused to call the bank for this man for his information, he got pissy and stormed out. Lucky for me, I never had to see him again. Not. He came back in a few weeks later, and of course, I got stuck with him again. This time, he kept getting messages and ads saying he had a virus on his phone. For those who aren't in tech support or work with phones, 9 out of 10 times, this usually means they don't have a virus and it's just spam sites that are sending messages trying to get you to install actual malware. However, at the time, I was still somewhat new, so this was my first time seeing it. I ended up breaking the cardinal rule of opening Google Chrome without asking first, and was greeted by a half dozen tabs of certain sites. No wonder he was getting so much spam. I wanted to wash my hand with fire after seeing that. I ended up just turning off his notifications for Google and telling him it was fixed. The real thing you should do is just clear out the memory cache and it resets your browsing history so it disables the spam sites from sending anything. Over the next year and a half, he came in every month or so with the same darn issue. And every time, either I, unfortunately, or a coworker had to help him and show him how to fix his phone. By now, I knew how to do the method above and even showed him how to do it for himself, but alas, no dice. Now, the next time we saw him was around the beginning to mid-year 2 of my time working there, and we were busy when in walks PB. Luckily, my coworker got him since I was in the middle of a sale. His issue was a pretty easy one. Ads kept popping up because of apps on his phone that he downloaded without noticing from other apps' ads. Very common practice with solitaire or those stupid puzzle games. So he asked my coworker to fix it. My coworker fixed it by, of course, deleting the apps that caused the spam. This sent PB into a yelling fit where he began screaming at my coworker cause how dare he touch things on his phone. Now, this coworker of mine was a guy in his mid-20s who gave no Fs. He started to argue with PB, telling him he did what he had asked and the phone was fixed. Note, he had only deleted the spam game apps, but who knows if this guy actually played them. Finally, PB left in a huff, and my coworker began to rant about him. We assured him he was fine since the app was malicious and PB had asked for us to fix it. My final interaction with PB was a few weeks later when he came in with the same issue as last time. I unfortunately got stuck with him again. He told me to fix it, but remembering his last interaction, I told him I'd have to delete what was causing the spam, which meant the apps. What? You aren't deleting anything, just fix the phone. I can't because you need to delete what's causing it. You need to delete these apps and stop the spam. Just fix it. I internally shrugged and pretended to mess with it. Done. Then he took his phone and left, never to be seen again as long as I worked there. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called K1YCO. It says, "Sir, it's a phone issue. In the same vein as asking the manufacturer of your TV to fix your TV because a specific channel stopped broadcasting." OP responded to this one and said, "A coworker came up with a great analogy similar to this. It was something like, sir, you bought your car from a dealer. You don't ask them to tune your radio for you." I think this is one of those cases where it's a question of looking at the customer and saying, hey, do you want this fixed or not? Because I can fix it for you, and that means I have to use your phone and remove some stuff. Or I don't touch your phone, you take it somewhere else and figure it out yourself. I think OP just got lucky in this case that the customer didn't come back because they didn't actually fix the customer's issue. This story comes to us from Trek001. Step on it? No, harder. It's a week to Christmas, Friday afternoon, the weather is piss poor, and I'm honestly already in a weekend headspace when my coworker calls me, who's already on holiday, mind you, dear reader, and tells me I need to swap a generator we together installed. Well, I can explain to them how to do it on the phone. A literal trained monkey can do it. Just hang it into the brackets and plug 2 cables in. Easy, right? Well, the doctor doesn't want to do it, and neither do the nurses because they could break this expensive X-ray equipment. Oh, and they also don't want to pay me for driving out and doing it, which they want done today, by the way. Now, I'm not exactly thrilled to do this, and I have to ask my boss if we're doing it for free today. Sadly, we do. So I sigh, grab the new guy, and a screwdriver. A 2-hour drive filled with Eurobeat later, we pull up just after closing hour at the vet with our singular screwdriver. The new generator is already sitting there, 5-minute adventure in and out. We take a test shot, that's an X-ray of a pen. Marvelous, works like a charm. After we're done, I get curious, is the old generator really broken? I've installed this thing myself just a few short months ago, and it was brand spanking new, as well as one of our better models. I've got a spare hand switch anyway, and the new guy gets to irradiate a chair. Press, beep, click, and the display shows it exposed. A mystery for Monday. I want to go home. We're closing in on 6 p.m. anyway. So we call the nurses in, they marvel at the crappy X-ray of our pen, and off we go. Another 2 hours of Eurobeat await us. Now, you may wonder, where does stepping get involved in this? First, a bit of explaining of X-ray devices. There is hand switches and foot switches. When you go and get your X-ray taken, the doctor dresses you up nicely in lead to protect the stuff they don't want to see and evacuate the premise. These guys usually use hand switches because they've got their hands free. Now, vets need to hold their patient down because a cat may not fully grasp the concept of radiation. Since they're preoccupied getting their hands scratched, they use foot switches. Think of them like a foot switch for a guitar or a gas pedal. Normally, nowadays, these have 2 stages, prep and expose. Same with hand switches. That is, in case you want to control the specific timing the X-ray fires. So you spool the generator up in case you want to take an X-ray of a specific breathing cycle. Like say on a rabbit, because they're notoriously bad at holding their breath in. That out of the way, I get back in on Monday at 11 a.m. and already my coworker grins at me and calls me a moron. Apparently the vet I drove to on Friday called and the generator doesn't work. That's impossible. Both fired when I did, and somehow none fire when they do it. So I called them up and watched the software side on their end from my cozy office chair. They first tell me they're suddenly using a foot switch when I plugged in a hand switch on Friday. Okay, need to swap that, but they assure me they did. No dice. We go step by step, and would you know it, it isn't plugged in. The hand switch is still in. We swap them out, and wouldn't you know it, now I suddenly see a response when they step on the pedal. It preps and abort. It's preparing to expose and abort. So I tell her to step on it. Indignantly, the nurse responds that she is, in fact, stepping on it. Harder, I tell her. By now, my coworker is questioning if I'm having an inappropriate conversation on the phone. Again, she tells me she is stepping on it as hard as she can. Now, I know I'm dealing with a layer 8 issue and groan quietly after muting my microphone. The nurse is angry that this stupid machine isn't making the funny x-rays that make her see dog intestines. So, as nicely as I can, I ask her to get another nurse. And wouldn't you know it, dear reader, a different nurse slams her foot on the pedal like she's Max Verstappen, and we immediately get an awful image of dog bowels. But I'm not here to teach them how to make a good x-ray. Nurse number 1 clears her throat awkwardly and thanks me. Now, we could have ended it here and all laughed at a lady that couldn't step on a pedal. But OP, I hear you asking, what of the original generator? Well, you guessed it, it's in perfect working order. They will not be getting a discount on their next order that return customers would usually be entitled to. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Man Who Is Drunk. It says, yeah, here in Norway, I'd quit on the spot if the boss didn't bill them the works. Retail price of generator, weekend dispatch of 2 techs, driving reimbursement, and user training. One thing is providing cheap service above and beyond in a fault situation. Another thing is not trying a single step of troubleshooting before insisting on a dispatch. There is this thing called customer education, and they learn best when it affects their wallet. I can't actively support my employer allowing customers to act like that and get away with it. It is a waste of my time, against my professional integrity, and bad for the company's revenue. If the boss can't agree, then he'll have to find my replacement right away. OP responded to this one and said, I installed the thing like 3 months ago, end of autumn. It was within warranty, so we assumed it was actually broken and dispatched a replacement to them via UPS. My boss sent me for free as a sign of goodwill because these guys are planning on future purchases. Well, those future purchases will now be without a discount. I've thought about your last comment a bit more and I agree. We are handing out too many freebies and it stole my Friday afternoon. Wasn't too chuffed about that, but I'll have to protect my boss here. Technically speaking, the guy who authorized it isn't my direct supervisor, but rather my boss's boss. For simplicity, I shortened it to my boss, as my actual division head is a really great guy, and the one who called me a moron on Monday, he isn't too pleased about those freebies either, since we're losing profits. Sales, however, seeks customer retention as they get a percentage of each sale, while they wouldn't get a share on support or the actual drive there. So quite frankly, they can't be arsed to make them pay for it, as they won't make a penny off of it, and we may upset the customer. Another commenter down below called Rathman said, I'm wondering what the first nurse's malfunction is. Stepping on a pedal harder is not a difficult instruction. Even if she's particularly petite, if she can see over the table, she should weigh enough. OP responded and said, it's a staged pedal. The first stage for prep feels like it floors out. You need to actually apply some pressure to break the stage and advance to expose. Some nurses are incredibly scared of breaking equipment. Believe it or not, this is not the first or only time I've had to tell someone to step harder on the pedal. Usually, they'll manage though without needing assistance from a second nurse after I tell them harder. You know, another factor to think about here is that this nurse might not have been around very long in this place and might not have a lot of experience pressing on one of those pedals, especially if they just brought out the pedal because OP did say they set it up with the hand trigger. So yeah, it sucks to get sent out to replace something for customer education, and your company did miss out on a little bit of money there, but like was said, they are going to be repeat customers, so it's a small price to pay in the long run, and I'm guessing OP got paid to go out there, so that works too. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. Make sure to check out our new podcast, Karma Crime, available on all podcast platforms. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.